Jets at Browns. Kind of one of the uglier Week 2 matchups, but still an NFL game, still fun to talk about, and still two teams. They're interesting. So, first the Jets team, right? Well, they just got absolutely stomped by the Ravens, and unfortunately for them, as we'll talk about, but I'm going to kind of jump some steps here. With Joe Flacco quarterback, it is effectively impossible for them to win games against any even reasonable team, which obviously is the case here. This Browns team, with a very exciting, probably unnecessarily exciting win in Carolina, 1-0 under Jacoby Brissett so far, and a team that showed that they have a lot of talent still, regardless of their quarterback situation, and they have a lot of ways to win games. So let's get into it, right? How does this Jets offense look? Well, like I said, I can talk, and I will talk about a lot of individual matchups, but keep in mind that all of this comes back to you have Joe Flacco quarterback, a guy who just doesn't throw the ball down the field unless he's like literally forced to because of some play action pass that only has deep routes, who has no mobility in the pocket, goes down at even signs of pressure, and you just can't play offense with him. And unfortunately for the Jets, it kind of looked like in week 1 that they didn't even try, which is that part of, we'll see. I wonder if they'll change, but it's tough for now. But can this Jets team run the ball first? Well, I actually still kind of like their offensive line. They definitely struggled in week 1 against the Ravens. But the Ravens have a really good defensive front and a defensive front that matches up pretty poorly or pretty well from their end against this Jets team. But, with the addition of Laken Tomlinson, I think him, Elijah Vera Tucker, are reasonable at guard and can actually get some traction at times. Connor McGovern's still a really bad center, and that does hurt them. But George Fant, if he's playing against not crazy good players, is a reasonable guy too. And Max Mitchell, actually, of all the positives there were for the Jets in week 1, I think he might have been the biggest on offense, at least. Granted, the Jets did a ton schematically to help him out and not put him on islands with better players. But it's not like he really fucked up almost ever, to be honest with you, given the little that he did have to do. So I like him, at least so far. Problem is, this Browns run defense is anchored by the best edge defending run pair in the entire league. Myles Garrett absolutely lead at that. Jadeveon Clowney, while is a enigma, he's kind of bad as a pass rusher. He's a crazy good run defender who uses that athleticism, got him drafted first overall very well in that area of his game. And these Jets tackles, for as much as I just complimented Max Mitchell, they're not at this level. George Fant especially. I like him as a player generally. I think he's underrated and gets way too much hate for his time in Seattle, but he cannot compete with what the Browns have here. And it's not like they're bad in other places too. While their interior is a little bit vulnerable, especially once they get into better teams, not the case here. And their linebackers, especially with Anthony Walker and Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, both positive players, very much so. It's hard to move the ball on the ground against this team, and the Jets, especially with the loaded boxes they're going to face, they just don't have it. So then the pass game, does it look better? Well, first, regardless of the quarterback situation, there's a lot of pass rush here. Like I said, the tackles are they cannot handle Myles Garrett, who's the best pass rusher in the game with, TJ Watt. And you're just kind of screwed already. Jadeveon Clowney, while I roast him for being kind of a bad pass rusher, he can be weaker bad tackles. And George Fant, while I don't think is bad, is of that more nimble variety that Jadeveon Clowney can bully a little bit. And on the interior, there's enough, especially with Connor McGovern still in there, that they can get after it. And these Browns corners are good. Denzel Ward is really, really good. Martin Emerson came in for the injured Greedy Williams last week as a third-round rookie and was kind of awesome, to be honest with you. He very occasionally got beat by good receivers in DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson, but it was few and far between, and most of the time he was there with a lot of stuff in a Brown scheme that asked these guys to play man a lot and actually follow receivers. So I like Martin Emerson, at least so far, quite a bit. And these Jets receivers are just kind of mixed at this point. Elijah Moore is really good for sure, and he'll win some, but Garrett Wilson barely played. They rotated a lot in week 1, and when he was on the field, I think he showed some things that do make me excited about him. I don't expect it to pop in this game. Corey Davis is pretty limited by Gavin Newsom and Denzel Ward, and these other guys, are probably not going to play that much. So there's not exactly a ton to work with on the outside, and the Jets, of course, don't really have a relevant tight end or running back in the receiving. Michael Carter's certainly relevant, but I think the Browns and their good safeties with Grant Delpit, John Johnson, and Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah from linebacker can handle those guys in coverage pretty well. So I just don't see paths for this Jets offense to succeed. I gave them 6-13. but that's more of a function of I think their defense is really good and can maybe get some short fields or something like that. But it's just you're just kind of screwed. So how does this Browns offense look? Can they clear that low number? Well, I would say pretty likely. Now, we'll see if Jack Conklin plays in this one. He is a really big miss for this team once they get into better teams, but James Hudson did play fine in week 1. I think you can live with him at least for a period of the season. And this Jets defense, man, they were really, really good in week 1. They have some clear holes that are going to hurt them throughout this whole year, but they're like 1 or 2 players away from being kind of elite. They're really good in a lot of ways, but unfortunately those players are still missing, and we'll talk about what that looks like here. So can the Browns run the ball? Well, that's super important, of course, especially with Jacoby Brissett still at quarterback and with Kevin Stefanski being the decision maker. Running the ball is kind of what they do, and yeah, they're still really, really good at it. Their guards are dominant. Joel Bitonio, Wyatt Teller in every aspect of the run game. Jedrick Wills is extremely good himself. Jack Conklin also pretty elite in that area now. Even if he doesn't play James Hudson, like I said, he can function. And Pocic actually ended up working out better in this scheme than I was maybe expecting. I didn't originally think he was very good, especially in the Seahawks, but last year, as a starter was kind of good, actually, and he comes over, and there's something to him, actually, I think, in this scheme. And so for as good as this Jets front is, with the offensive line as good as the Browns have, they're not going to stick them completely. Especially because Quinnen Williams is the only really elite player. Huge fan of Quinnen Williams. The dude he was worth that 3rd overall pick. He consistently wins from the interior. He's an elite player at his position. But he's not Aaron Donald. And when you're not Aaron Donald from that position, your use is limited, of course. And these other guys, Sheldon Rankins is pretty good, but not crazy. And then on the edges, especially as run defenders, John Franklin Myers I like a ton. He's a really good player. But Carl Lawson, just okay in that aspect. Jacob Martin, way more of a pass rusher. Jermaine Johnson, 1st-round pick. He looked fine. I do think he has the athleticism to stick around for a while. And there were some signs of him being pretty good, but as a run defender still in the second game, not crazy about him. More importantly, though, the Browns have a really good run scheme. They consistently get their linemen into space, attacking linebackers, and using the incredible ability of Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb to find space and break tackles and that type of stuff. And against these Jets linebackers, something I was worried about last week that ended up being the case mostly, and something I worry about here too, is that Quincy Williams, especially, and Quan Alexander, against a team that's going to run a lot of attempts with a good scheme and good players, are not good enough and will eventually get out of position, get buried by players, and give up big gains. Now, they did better against the Ravens than I thought they were going to, but I think a lot of that actually, frankly, was a function of the Ravens not really being adventurous in their play calling offensively. They're just kind of not very good. And so I'm still worried about Quincy Williams and Quan Alexander, especially in this game. So I do think the Browns are going to be able to run the ball very comfortably, or not very comfortably, but well enough that they can get the use they need to be a fairly successful offense. Despite me liking the Jets front seven a lot, the Browns are just so goddamn good at it. You need to be a little bit better than the Jets are to be shut down with it. So then the pass game, right? Can the Browns move the ball through the air? Well, there it's tough too. Jacoby Brissett, not very good, of course. Really lived kind of just off play action in week 1, but Stefanski does a good job of using that to his advantage. It's not like their route concepts were horrible, and they still have Amari Cooper, who's one of the best receivers in football, and wins very, very consistently. Now, does he always get the ball? No. Much more a product of the quarterbacks he's played with than his own ability. But when he's on the field, he still wins a lot. Donovan Peoples-Jones is fine. David Bell didn't really show anything, but these Jets corners, while good, Sauce Gardner was pretty good in his first game. DJ Reed I like a lot. They were playing the Ravens receivers, which is kind of the easy mode of NFL corner play. And I'm less convinced that they're going to stick, especially to Amari Cooper. He's just so good. And that's probably enough by itself, to be honest with you. And then this Jets team still running out guys who just can't cover at safety, specifically LaMarcus Joyner. Joyner's just really, really bad. He should not be on an NFL field at this point. Personal, the dude is directly responsible for touchdowns almost every time he plays. The third Ravens touchdown last week was very directly on him. He doesn't have speed. He doesn't have reaction ability. He's just bad. And that really hurts you when he's on the field. Jordan Whitehead, I do like more. I do think he's actually helpful in this Browns as being a guy who can get downhill and be aggressive. But that can lead to drawbacks with him getting out of position, especially against Stefanski, with the way he uses misdirection to attack safeties who kind of do that shit. There's space here for the Browns. So I don't love it because it's Jacoby Brissett and because the Jets do have a really good front seven. I think they're going to end up being a very good defense, maybe even by the end of this year. It's not right now, so I think the Browns will eventually have enough success to get 18-26. I don't think they're going to go crazy or nothing, but because of that, yeah, very comfortable Browns win. They're just a way better team. I like them a lot with the betting. I have them -6.5 because Joe Flacco, basically. It's really hard. He's just so bad. The only thing I'll say is I do have, like I said, I have a lot of respect for Robert Saleh on the Jets defense. I think in the back of my mind, there's a chance that this game is more like 9-15 or something, as opposed to 9-20 something, which is my only drawback, but not a big deal. And then the under, you could give this number like 35, and if the Jets score 0, it's still probably going to go under, which is my whole thing. But very confident in this game. I've been very confident where I am with the Browns for years, and the Jets. Like I said, I don't want to repeat it that much more. You just can't win games with Joe Flacco in 2022. You can't even compete. It's impossible. So, yeah, love this game for betting, and definitely a Browns win.